went to Iraq. Okay, and that was a horrible decision, including the migration, everything that it's a mess. Now, if Saddam Hussein was there, would we be better off? Absolutely. Hey, this was not a nice man. This wasn't a great guy. But Saddam Hussein did one thing. He killed terrorists. He was a professional killer of terrorists. Now, you want to be a terrorist? You go to Iraq. That's called the Harvard of terrorism. Look, whether it's Gaddafi, terrible decision, Hillary Clinton, whether it's Saddam Hussein, we were a lot better off before.
Do you think?
And besides that, Iraq did not knock down the World Trade Center, just in case you had any questions.
Do you think Islam is at war with the West?
I think Islam hates us. There's something there that there's a tremendous hatred there. There's a tremendous hatred. We have to get to the bottom of it. There is an unbelievable hatred of us.
In Islam itself?
You're going to have to figure that out. Okay, you'll get another Pulitzer, right? But you're going to have to figure that out. But there is a tremendous hatred, and we have to be very vigilant. We have to be very careful, and we can't allow people coming into this country who have this hatred of the United States.
I guess the question is,
and of people that are not Muslim.
I guess the question is there a war between the West and radical Islam, or is there a war between the West and Islam?
It's radical, but it's very hard to define. It's very hard to separate because you don't know who's who. Look, these two young people that got married, she supposedly radicalized him. Who knows what happened? The bottom line is they killed 14 people. They gave them baby showers. I mean, they were friends of theirs. So they walked in and they killed them. There's an unbelievable hatred. You look at Paris, 138 people killed, many people going to die in the hospital, mortally wounded, horribly wounded, and they walk into a room and boom, boom, boom. There's a sickness going on that's unbelievable. And honestly, you have to get to the bottom of it.
You talked about going after the families of terrorists. You now reverse that.
I didn't reverse anything.
You would still want to go after the families of terrorists?
No, I didn't reverse anything.
Donald Trump had a lot more to say about what tactics he would try to use against terrorists, how far he's actually willing to go, and what he thinks about waterboarding. What we talked about today, some were calling we also talked about what some were calling his surreal victory speech last night, plus we'll ask our political panel what they are expecting to see at the Univision Democratic debate, which starts at the top of the hour now, just minutes away. We're going to bring it to you live, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern. Stick around.
I like the stage. We are not hearing you. All right, so we are back. So Wes, if you could ask 3 questions to Bernie Sanders during this debate, what questions would those be?
Yeah, 3 questions.
Yeah, 3 questions. You get 3 questions to ask Bernie. What would it be? And then I'm going to ask you the same thing for Hillary.
Question number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Why it took you 40 years to get a good job? And we'll forget the fact that it's a government job.
And what's your second question?
Damn, I forgot them.
That question sounds real rhetorical.
It's a good question, though. How you expect to lead a country when you didn't do nothing steady with your life for 40 years? Like, what can you do for us?
And what would you ask Hillary if you had a question to ask her? What would it be?
Bitch, where's the money?
That's what it'd be?
Yes.
People might think
Release the scripts. Release the scripts.
I feel like I feel like people would just come down on it. They'd be like, "Why are you being sexist? Why are you calling her a bitch?"
Oh my bad. I was supposed to put at the end. Where's the money, bitch?
Period. Exclamation point.
Yeah, I can't call her a bitch.
I would ask her, Hillary, your perception in the media is that you tend to lie or flip your stances on a lot of policies that you were once for and now against. How do you feel about that? What makes you change your stances so frequently and so, how do you say, conveniently? I would ask her that question, and then I would ask Bernie. What would I ask Bernie? How does he plan on handling ISIS or any international threat? Because I feel like I haven't really heard any type of international talk from him. It's always mostly like inward. So I would like to hear, because a president's going to have to deal with that, you know? So I would want to hear that information from him. Those would be my questions. What would be your questions, Kuro?
How many questions I have?
Just one. Just ask one for Bernie and one for Hillary, if you could ask them.
Okay. My first question for all of them: why you fucking not on the DINtv, bitches? You have to speak with your people right away, directly, and get the answers. And you can do this every day, and people will address to you all their precious questions, all their issues right immediately face to face. Do this every day, and you will not get off the ground. You will always stay on the ground, both.
I like how your question turns into a statement.
Okay, yes, I'm apologizing. Yes, okay.
Because the first thing they're going to be like, what is DINtv? And then you're going to use your question answer time to explain it, and then that's it. Like,
Okay. I overplayed. Okay.
what would you ask Hillary?
You know, I think it's absolutely pointless to ask her something. If only, I mean, ask the question. So I would only ask her in the sake of the country and the people of this country, just to drop off from the race, like immediately support Sanders and don't waste time and don't fool people anymore. It's enough for her. She has good career anyway. She is a ghost secretary, so it's fine. Okay, it's just, this is one message.
She's going to look at you and be like, next question.
Next question. So you're playing for Hillary?
Yeah, I'll pretend I'm Hillary. What I'm trying to say is, people, I'm not a one-issue candidate here, okay? Bernie's been working for the government for the past 40 years and hasn't had anything to show for it.
Okay, do you know this from the literature?
I'm a West Hillary hybrid.
This character, like a Don Quixote. Do you know this from the literature, from Spanish literature? It's actually worldwide.
Like a donkey hat, like a dunce hat?
Yes, Don Quixote. The guy who was fighting with this huge wind.
Is it like a cone? Like a cone hat?
The KKK hat?
No.
No, I will find.
I thought you were trying to say dunce hat, because I know what a dunce hat is. Like this. This is what I think you're talking about. Is this what you're talking about? Okay, I don't know what you're talking about then. All right, you guys. So we are 15 minutes away from the big debate that's happening tonight. I, for one, am super excited. I want to hear what Hillary has to say after that huge loss in Michigan, which she thought she was going to win. So I definitely want to see her interaction with Bernie and see if that loss has changed her position as to how she speaks to him during debates now. So she may get a little bit more aggressive. She may just slow down a little bit. So I'm excited to see how that plays out tonight. So you guys on Meerkat and Periscope, please check in at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or right now and come to DINtv.com so that we can interact and watch the show together. All right, so let's see what they're saying here on live.
Imagine the conversation when they're talking about how weak and soft and pathetic we are, and they go out and chop off people's heads, okay? They can't believe it. They can't believe it.
I can ask you about
the fact is, just in a nutshell, we have to be much tougher. If we're going to beat ISIS, we have to be much tougher than we are. When you have General Hayden saying, oh, that's so terrible the way Trump is talking, that's why we're losing.
I got to ask you, I watched the press conference you gave last night, the victory speech. Obviously, a huge night for you. Just a couple of factual things. The stakes you showed, those aren't actually Trump stakes, right?
Oh, no, they're Trump. No, I buy them. I'm not going to kill the cow.
No, but they're not sold. Those are, because the whole reason for showing those things was to fight back against what Mitt Romney said about a failed
Just so you understand, Trump's stakes. We sell the stakes through my clubs. I have many clubs and hotels, so we sell the stakes.
But they're not sold as sharper image. They're not.
No, they're not sold. No, they're sold.
So that business is gone.
No, it's the same thing. It's an offshoot of it. I mean, it's the same thing. We do a tremendous steak business.
Because those steaks were bought locally from a meat supplier.
No, we buy a lot of steaks from different places. I don't want to buy, if I'm in California, I don't want to buy my steaks from New York.
So those are the steaks you sell.
We have different suppliers. We sell the steaks, and largely to our hotels and our clubs and things like that. It's a small business.
And the magazine you showed up, that's not the Trump magazine that Mitt Romney was talking
just so you understand, I've had many magazines. Every time I open a business, I'll sometimes open a magazine for a period of a year, get the business started, and then close it.
Because people were pointing out today, saying, well, look, the items you were showing last night in order to push back against Mitt Romney, the implication was that those are Trump steaks available nationwide.
Well, they are available nationwide. You can buy them at different places that I own. I own many, many places.
You can buy them if you eat them
worldwide
here.
Worldwide, yeah. And
you can't go to the internet and buy them.
That magazine's been with me for a long time, and you morph it in.
That's not the Trump magazine
just so you understand,
that Romney was talking about.
I open up many magazines when I start a business, and I'll keep it open for a year or two until the business gets going. And after the business gets going, you close it up. It's like a lost leader because, frankly, you don't make any money with these magazines.
Finally, the debate tomorrow night. Do you expect the tone, the tenor to be different than the last one? The last one was tough. I mean, you had people on both sides.
It's such an interesting question. I think it's going to be much different. I must tell you, last time I was leading, and by the way, I don't know how you feel about it, but every single poll said I won the last debate. Every Drudge said it, Time Magazine said it. They do those online polls with hundreds of thousands of people calling in. But I was in the 60s and 70s percentile. Now, when I went into that, I said, this is going to be an interesting evening, I will tell you. It's going to be a tough evening. Many people said, oh, boy, I wouldn't want to be you tonight. That was going to be a tough evening. I mean, they were like wounded. They were really wounded. I think this is going to be much different. Now, I may be wrong, but I am now far and away the front runner. I think, here's the thing. The Republican Party is sitting on something that's so great. They're sitting on millions and millions and millions of people that want to be part of it. The worst thing they can do is knock me out. If I get knocked out, if I don't make it, every one of those people.
So you think they're going to start to coalesce?
Every one of those, I'm the only one can beat Hillary, and I'll beat her easily. I'll bring in Michigan. I may bring in New York. We always talk about the path. The path is much tougher for a Republican. You do understand that structurally. Because if they lose Ohio, it's over. If they lose Pennsylvania, if they lose Florida, it's over. But I'll bring in states long beyond that. First of all, I'll win Florida.
Will you debate Cruz if it's one-on-one?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean,
you would do a debate with Cruz.
I don't think he's a good debater. I think he's, frankly, the way I look at Ted, I think it's very phony. I think Ted is actually a bad talker, pretty good debater, bad talker, can't talk. I don't mind debating him at all. The problem is when I debate somebody, then people say I'm not a nice person. But they say you won the debate.
So bottom line, tomorrow night, you're expecting a different tone, but you'll be ready.
I think it's going to be softer, but I'll be ready. I mean, I think that Marco is going to be a different person. Marco's been mortally wounded. Questions, will Marco even be there? I hope he makes the right decision. I'm not going to make the decision for him. But Marco's been, pretty badly wounded. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Kasich is interesting because he said he was going to win Michigan and he lost. He said he was going to win it. I mean, he said to you, I think I watched him on your show.
He never came out and said he would win.
Well,
he said he thought he would do very well.
He said he would win Michigan. He didn't even come in second. Okay, so I was of the impression if he didn't win Michigan, I'm not talking about Ohio. I'm talking about Michigan. If he didn't win Michigan, he would drop out. He came in third. Okay, he didn't even come in second. So it'll be interesting to see what he says. And Ted is Ted. I mean, we've been playing the game now for a long time. These debates to me are getting very boring. If you want to know the truth,
Mr. Trump, thank you.
Have a good time.
Appreciate
Thank you.
A lot to talk.
Okay, so of course Trump will easily beat and Cruz and everyone from the Republican end, I think. But and the Hillary as well. The Hillary is not like absolutely. He with his rhetoric, he'll just constantly pressure her. But Sanders, he is the if to put Sanders against Trump, this is an interesting combination because he just from other Iceland. He like lives on another planet. He'll speak absolutely.
Honestly, if you really paying attention to them, they're both kind of the same. They just have different views on like corporate taxation and everything.
Yes, I would agree with you. Yes,
They're pretty much the same.
they have a lot of similarities, and they eager to fix, and they both just see different approaches to that. And who is right? It's tough to say. For me personally, more closer Sanders, but I just don't know that. So
Are you guys talking about Trump and Sanders?
Yeah,
The comparison?
I think Trump and Sanders shouldn't really do a debate. They should do like a sit down with each other and just talk about how they would run the country. That'd be pretty interesting to see.
Do you think they'd do it though? I think Bernie would do it for sure.
I know Trump would do it. Like, come on, when would he turn down a TV slot?
That's the thing. I don't think TV wants to see that yet.
I don't think TV is even ready for that kind of grown man.
If anything, I feel like it would be like YouTube hosting something. I feel like YouTube or some like online partner would do something like that.
Man,
I feel like he should do that. I feel Bernie should definitely go to like some online platform and just like come on and just like speak to people. If they see him on the internet, then that would be even better.
I don't know why none of them was on Periscope.
Who's our social media team? Seriously.
I don't know why. As much as Trump is on Twitter, he can be on Periscope.
I'm surprised he doesn't have I would be, if Trump was to become president, I could see him doing like an apprentice style White House edition, just like.
Yeah.
Can you imagine him saying fire to like these politicians trying to like?
Be so real though. That's what's sad. Like this wouldn't be for TV. This would be for the country. Like we're putting people in place.
He would do that. I feel like he would do that though. I think he would bring cameras into the office with him and have a reality show based off him.
I'm pretty sure they wouldn't leave.
But do you think that would be like a threat to national security though?
Nah.
Showing too much of the White House?
Everybody knows everything about the White House.
What do our blabbers and meerkatters think? Do you guys think that a Trump White House type of reality show would work? You guys are watching TV and tell us.
Trump definitely may do this. Not may, will, I think.
House of Trump. Oh my God. See? Remember who you heard of here first. House of Trump. That's what they're going to call it. Like House of Cards, but like House of Trump. And that Trump is going to choose who he's going to have on his cabinet. Like who he's going to have on his team. That'd be really interesting to watch. All right, so we are literally 5 minutes away from the debate, you guys. Periscope and Meerkatters. You guys should definitely come tune in on DINtv.com because we're going to be streaming the debate live with our users on here. So we're going to be able to watch the comments as they come in real time. So let's see what's going on at the conference now for the debate.
start off a panel discussion on Donald Trump, and then we'll switch to the Democrats, his victory speech last night, his opponents, and also his path going forward. Joining us right now is CNN Inside Politics anchor John King and chief political analyst Gloria Borger. It's interesting to hear Trump. He's clearly, you and I were talking about this, aware of the moment that he is in right now.
Yeah, I take fully measured, leaning back. You asked him a question about Larry Kudlow and his views on China trade. 6 weeks ago, Donald Trump would not have let you finish that sentence. He would have made his position on stage. He would have been more combative. He understands, and you heard a bit of it last night before you get into the infomercial, too, where he said it's time to keep the Republican Senate, keep the Republican Congress, being the presumptive nominee, and he's trying to seem more measured, trying to seem more, frankly,
even in those moments, he can't stop himself from, going back to what Mitt Romney said about his failed businesses, showing steaks, which are not steaks that are marked, they're not Trump steaks. They're bought from a local meat seller in West Palm Beach, Florida, called Bush Brothers. And they're sold.
Irony, no irony there, Bush Brothers.
But I mean, it's a minor, ridiculous point, but the fact that he sort of was fibbing about it in a nationally, broadcast press conference is kind of surreal.
He can only exhibit a certain amount of self-control to a point, I think, and I thought he was trying to do so with you today, because clearly people have gotten to him and said, okay, you need to act presidential. But then when you ask him a question, he turns into sort of Donald Trump, who has to go on the attack.
He got most of the way through. Ted Cruz doesn't get under my skin.
I want to bring in...
let me just clarify that. So Trump bought those steaks from someone and just presented this like Trump steaks.
Surprise.
That's how Trump steaks was. It's not like he owned the ranch and the refinery, and no, he just bought other people's great quality steaks. Or some people say they weren't quality steaks. That's how he sold them. He just bought them and put his name on.
Wow. I was so naive.
No, he don't own. He never owned all that.
I picked that up right away.
That was a Trump steak company. Like, the only difference between those steaks and what he was selling out of Sharper Image is that they no longer selling Sharper Image. He said you can buy them if you want them. Come to my spots and get them. That's how he's gonna win that argument every time. I still sell them. You gotta come to my clubs. We got them.
He does wordplay. That's what it is. Because the American general public doesn't like. They'll take his sentences as face value and won't actually research his sentence.
Right.
And when they do research it, it's so broad that he can spin it to something else.
But Anderson was doing the same thing. It was like, well, these aren't the steaks that are sold publicly. No, they're not. So they're not for sale. Yes, they are for sale. You got to come to my clubs and buy them. So, he's just playing the game. He can play the game better than him. That's all it is. His talk game is better.
So it's like Walmart saying, I sell Walmart Cheerios. But then somebody's saying, well, you don't own Cheerios. But you're like, no, but I buy Cheerios, but you can buy it at the Walmart.
Yep. Like me and Cheerios.
So it's you literally trick people.
It's just no matter how you play your words, like me and Cheerios buy our O's from the same place.
I don't know, that quote from him just rings true to me right now. He's just like, what did he say? The dumbest people I love. Let me look it up just to make sure I'm quoting him word for the word. Quote. Dumbest people.
I like how they got the countdown going.
Right? Let's see what they're saying over here. Because he looks super excited. Look at his eyes. It's all open and stuff. Let's see here.
And does Hillary Clinton start to, did she learn some lesson from what happened in Michigan and start to pivot, that, famous word in politics, which you can interpret in a multitude of different ways?
I saw a statistic that should perhaps make the Clinton campaign nervous, which is that about 18% of the early voting that's been done in the state by Democratic voters are from voters who did not vote in the last two elections. So those are voters that are more likely to come out and vote for an outsider candidate, which is what Sanders is trying to position himself as. So I think you have the possibility of seeing the type of spike we saw in Michigan that pollsters missed actually happen on election day.
It's such a diverse state, though, right? And I think that, somebody who can win Florida in either party can say, I have an appeal to a broad coalition, because, this is in many ways three different states. And so, either one of them would want to win this state.
And just in terms of delegate count, I mean, you have that floating around in your head at all times. I mean, Bernie Sanders had an amazing win in Michigan, surprised a lot of people, certainly in the pundit world. The path forward, though, is tough.
And yet she stretched her lead last night in the delegate race. And so you have two campaigns going on. Her campaign says it's okay. We did, we
Thank you to our viewers coming in from Twitter and Facebook. You guys stay tuned. We will be streaming the event live. So
now in Sanders' camp, and the question is,
thank you for all you guys that are watching and coming from Facebook and Twitter. We will be streaming the event live on the left-hand side, which you guys see, or maybe right on your other side. So you guys stay tuned and continue watching.
Up there tonight. She wants to put him back in his place, if you will, make him more of a message candidate. So they both have reasons to escalate the attacks because of the stakes in the campaign, but there are huge risks if you do that too. That's what I'm fascinated by, the chess.
Right. How aggressive is it going to get tonight? I mean, we saw a lot of tension on the stage on Sunday, the debate over the issues of NAFTA and trade. But are they going to be coming out from the get-go ready to go?
I think they might. It's hard to say, but so much is at stake, particularly for Bernie Sanders right now, that I can't imagine that he would back off. He was very aggressive the last debate. I think he'll continue.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank John King and Gloria Borger, Alicia Menendez. It's great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see all of our panelists after the debate. It's about 10 seconds away now. Time now for the main event. We'll be on live right after. Here it is.
Noticias Univision presenta un programa.
Welcome to Miami.
Class families would be paying slightly more in taxes.
We should be deporting criminals, not hardworking immigrant families.
We have got to pass comprehensive immigration. Our sons and daughters to war under false pretense.
El debate demócrata. En vivo, desde el Miami-Dade College en la Florida. Con ustedes, María Elena Salinas y Jorge Ramos.
Bienvenidos al debate demócrata en el Miami-Dade College entre la ex secretaria de Estado Hillary Clinton y el senador de Vermont, Bernie Sanders.
Este será el primer y único debate que ambos candidatos enfrentarán teniendo en cuenta a los millones
Taking into account the millions of Hispanic voters in the country, Univision News, together with the Washington Post,
A nosotros nos acompaña esta noche
Here with us tonight is Karen King,
Washington Post
correspondent specialized in national policy.
Welcome, Karen. Bueno, ahora
now we're going to welcome the protagonists of this debate. First, former Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Why is she in all black like a wicked witch?
And Senator Clover, Bernie Sanders.
Why did lowering the volume for Bernie? I don't like that.
welcome to both of you. Thank you for being here. Bienvenidos a los dos.
Welcome to both of you.
Pero antes de proseguir, queremos darle la bienvenida también a Sebastián de la Cruz, el himno nacional de los Estados Unidos. Sebastián, bienvenido.
Sebastian, welcome. Good evening.
You guys stay tuned. If you have any reactions, feel free to speak it. For all your viewers out there.
You see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleam. Broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there.
You crying over there, Wes?
Oh, say does that star-spangled
Can you tearing up?
and not yet wave
I'm trying.
for the land.
That's hard though, singing with no music behind you.
Look what, man.
Didn't sound too bad.
They don't clap.
What was that? What? He's taking communion? What the hell was that?
What's up, boys?
Boys, who is that? Alex! What's up, man? You ready?
Yeah.
You ready for Miss Hillary? I think she's gonna come out, man. She is definitely gonna fire up.
Swinging?
Yeah, definitely. After that loss in Michigan, she is not gonna let Bernie have it at all.
She have to like a tank go on him.
For sure. I mean, Alex, you're just making my job even harder right now.
Right.
It's like smoking a spliff in my face, man. I would love to pass it on, like share it, man.
It's a cigarette.
Oh. But what we were going over some questions that we would ask the candidates. If you could choose one question to ask each candidate, which one would it be? I mean, what question would it be?
I don't know. I have to think about that for a little bit. Pass.
Okay,
right now.
well, I'll tell you my question that I would ask.
Sure.
For Bernie, I would ask him how he would handle international relations and also how he would combat ISIS. Because I
like that. Yeah, I
think
would go with that too. I think that's one issue with Bernie that we haven't heard too much about.
And for Hillary, I think it would help her this question if she could answer it properly. But how is she taking the media's perception of her being flippy floppy and always bringing up past policies that she's gone back against and then for again? So how does she feel about that perception of her? Because I feel like she's never really talked about it ever.
Yeah, she will deny everything. She will say there is no such perception. It's just your imaginations. It's just maybe some allegations.
I think the moment she says there's no such, Bernie's just going to be like, whoa.
I don't think I would have anything too productive to say to Hillary. It would probably just be me like yelling at her or something.
I wouldn't even yell at her. I feel like that does nothing to her. I feel like more or less, I'd be like, when's the last time you got a hug from your husband? Or something emotionally impacting. Because I feel like she's not, I don't get like empathy from her. I don't get like warm or not even warm because that's not what just like some sort of human aspect.
Hillary is a machine. She is a money-making machine. By the end of her political career, she became like this mechanism. That's it.
Rules of this debate that the candidates have accepted. They will have 90 seconds to answer each question.
This is going to be annoying. It's going to be annoying.
They will have 30 seconds to answer and another 30 seconds to answer
It's the only fee that you can get.
questions that we
That's how it's
have.
going It's a Spanish channel that is presenting this. That's why it's doing that.
Each one of you have 1 minute for your initial words. We begin with Secretary Clinton.
Thank you very much. I've been looking forward to this debate, and I want to thank Univision, Washington Post, Facebook, and Miami-Dade College, the largest college in North America, for hosting us here this evening. And tonight, I am looking forward to the opportunity to discuss how we knock down the barriers that stand in the way of people getting ahead and staying ahead, starting with the economic ones. My focus is on more good-paying jobs with rising incomes for families and how we prevent
corporations from taking jobs out of our country by imposing an exit tax, making them pay back any tax breaks they've gotten. But we also need to be having a positive agenda for manufacturing, for small businesses and entrepreneurs, for more clean energy jobs. And I also look forward to discussing comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship. That will be one of my priorities in my first 100 days as president. And I will also be talking about education. Every child deserves a good teacher in a good school. And so thank you for having us, and I look forward to the debate.
Thank you. Senator Sanders, your opening remarks.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. I'm running for president of the United States because given the crises facing our country, it is just too late for establishment politics and establishment economics. Together, we're going to have to overturn this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. Billionaires and Wall Street should not be buying elections. We got to end this rigged economy where people are working longer hours for low wages. Almost all new income and wealth going to the top 1%. And of course, we need comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship. And here in Miami, as much as any city in America, we know that we have got to combat climate change, transform our energy system, and leave this planet in a way that is kids and our grandchildren.
Thank you, Senator. First question, Secretary. You've been starting to sound like the nominee lately, but many voters are saying not so fast. Where did you fail last night in Michigan?
Well, look, I won one of the contests and lost another close one. I'm continuing to work hard for every single vote across our country. I was pleased that I got 100,000 more votes last night than my opponent and more delegates. So this is a marathon, and it's a marathon that can only be carried out by the kind of inclusive campaign that I'm running. A campaign that reaches out to everybody. A campaign that offers real positive solutions to the problems that we face. A campaign that is based on how together we can make progress, because I am a progressive who likes to get things done. So I'm excited about the upcoming contests, including right here in Florida, and will continue to work as hard as I can to earn the vote of every single voter.
Well, what went wrong in Michigan?
Now answer the question.
What went wrong in Michigan? What failed in Michigan specifically?
It was a very close race. We've had some of those. I've won some, I've lost some, but I was very pleased by the overall outcome last night. And now we're on to the states for next Tuesday, and I'm looking forward to campaigning hard on all of them.
Senator, aside from your astounding upset last
What were you saying, Alex?
Don't worry about it. Oh, did this lag?
night in
No,
Michigan,
we paused it
you're
for you to
still
talk.
far behind Secretary Clinton and
No, that's not me. That's the CNN stream. That's them. That's it.
she has 1,221 delegates, including super delegates, and you have 571. What is your pathway to make up the deficit, and can you realistically catch up?
Well, when we began,
That's a pretty intense question.
50% I was probably 60 or 70 points behind the secretary. We have come a long way in 10 months. We have won, including Michigan last night, which some people considered one of the major political upsets in modern American history. We have won 9 state primaries, caucuses. And I believe that our message of the need for people to stand up and tell corporate America and Wall Street that they cannot have it all is resonating across this country. And I think in the coming weeks and months, we're going to continue to do extremely well, win a number of these primaries, and convince superdelegates that Bernie Sanders is the strongest candidate to defeat Donald Trump.
Secretary Clinton, I want to disclose once again that my daughter Paula was for your campaign. And now I have a question about your emails. Your Republican opponents say that those emails have endangered our national security. Secretary of State, you wrote 104 emails in your private server that the government now says contain classified information, according to the Washington Post analysis. That goes against a memo that you personally sent to your employees in 2011, directing all of them to use official email, precisely because of security concerns. So it seems that you issued one set of rules for yourself and a different set of rules for the...
I don't think they're liking Hillary too much.
Oh yeah, they hit her twice.
Look at her. She's just like, bitch, really?
Look at that, really. So who specifically gave you permission? You did. Was it President Barack Obama? And would you drop out of the race if you get indicted?
Well, Jorge, there's a lot of questions in there, and I'm going to give the same answer I've been giving for many months. It wasn't the best choice. I made a mistake. It was not prohibited. It was not in any way disallowed. And as I've said, and as now has come out, my predecessors did the same thing, and many other people in the government. But here's the cut to the chase facts. I did not send or receive any emails marked classified at the time. What you're talking about is retroactive classification.
Such a lawyer.
And the reason that happens is when somebody asks, or when you are asked to make information public. I asked all my emails to be made public. Then all the rest of the government gets to weigh in. And some other parts of the government, we're not exactly sure who, has concluded that some of the emails should be now retroactively classified. They just said the same thing to former Secretary Colin Powell. They have said, we're going to retroactively classify emails.
CNN needs to fix their stream, man. Hold on, you guys.
Said personally. Now, I think he was right when he said this is an absurdity. And I think there is a case of overclassification. I am not concerned about it. I am not worried about it. And no Democrat or American should be either.
The questions were, Secretary, who gave you permission to operate? Was it President Obama?
There was no permission to be asked. It had been done by my predecessors. It was permitted. I didn't have to ask anyone.
If you get indicted, would you drop out?
Oh, for goodness, that is not going to happen. I'm not even answering that
question. Look at her. She's so upset, Alex.
Yeah. You have gone from saying,
how dare you ask me that question?
The following. The American people are sick and tired of hearing about your damn emails, to claiming that it is a very serious issue. Which is it?
There is a process underway, and that process will take its course. Today in America, the middle class is disappearing. We have massive levels of income and wealth inequality. Climate change threatens the whole planet. 47 million people live in poverty. I'm going to focus on the issues facing the working families of this country.
Good answer.
These moderators are
Secretary Clinton, you've known Donald Trump for a long time. You've seen what kind of campaign he's running.
Yo, they do not like
Secretary
her.
Clinton,
wow.
is Donald Trump a racist?
Yeah, Karen, I'm going to follow.
These are some Twitter questions. These are some like real Twitter questions.
If I'm so fortunate enough to be the Democratic nominee, there will be a lot of time to talk about him. I was the first one to call him out. I called him out when he was calling Mexicans rapists, when he was engaging in rhetoric that I found deeply offensive. I said, basta. And I am pleased
That was cute, Hillary. That was cute.
Also joining in making clear his demagoguery, his trafficking in prejudice and paranoia, especially from somebody running for president who couldn't decide whether or not to and David Duke. So, and people can draw their own conclusions about him. But you don't make America great by getting rid of everything that made America great. And my question is about his character.
And that is one of the primary things that Americans think about when they choose their next president. How would you describe the character of a person who has said the sorts of things he has about Mexican immigrants, about women, and who would ban people from entering this country based on their religion?
She'll say ignorant.
I think it's un-American. I think what he has promoted is not at all in keeping with American values, Karen. And I'm going to take every opportunity to criticize him, to raise those issues. I'm not going to engage in the kind of language that he uses. I think we can make the case against him if he is the nominee by pointing out what he has said, what he claims to believe in, the values he's promoting, and I think that's a better way for the American people to draw their conclusions.
Senator Sanders, do you think it's fair to call Donald Trump a racist?
This is what I think. I think that the American people are never going to elect a president who insults Mexicans, who insults Muslims, who insults women, who insults African Americans. And let us not forget that several years ago, Trump was in the middle of the so-called birther movement, trying to delegitimize the President of the United States of America. You know, I find it very interesting, Karen. My dad was born in Poland. I know a little bit about the immigrant experience. Nobody has ever asked me for my birth certificate. Maybe it has something to do with the color of my skin. I think, and I am very pleased. I am very pleased that I think in the last national poll that I saw, we were running 18 points ahead of Donald Trump.
On Facebook, millions of people are talking about immigration. And this map shows where in the country.
Sounds so Miami. Oh my gosh.
So, Secretary, I have a question for you. In 2003, you said on a radio show, specifically it was John Gamblin's radio show in that you were adamantly against illegal immigrants and that people have to stop employing illegal immigrants. Your new immigration plan is that you would expand President Obama's executive actions and that you would push for legislation that would include a path to citizenship for undocumented immigrants. So are you flip-flopping on this issue, or are you pandering to Latinos, what some would call Hispandering?
Well, shut up! In 2003, I sponsored the Dreamer Act. I sponsored it, I think, in every Congress after that. Cute. I have been consistent and committed to comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship. I think our best chance was in 2007. When Ted Kennedy led the charge on comprehensive immigration reform. We had Republican support. We had a president willing to sign it. I voted for that bill. Senator Sanders voted against it. Just think, imagine where we would be today if we had achieved comprehensive immigration reform 9 years ago. Imagine how much more secure families would be in our country, no longer fearing the deportation of a loved one, no longer fearing that they would be found out. So I am staunchly in favor of comprehensive immigration reform and have been so over the course of my public career.
Now, Senator Sanders, in 2007, you voted against immigration reform. You now say that it was because the bill had the guest worker provisions, which seem semi-slavery. But back then, this is what you said to CNN's Ludov. Let's listen.
If poverty is increasing and if wages are going down, I don't know why we need millions of people to be coming into this country as guest workers who work for lower wages than American workers and drive wages down even lower than they are right now.
It is without the principle.
So, Senator, were you concerned with working conditions for guest workers, or really because you think immigrants drive down wages and take jobs from Americans?
Well, you have guest worker programs that have been described by the Southern Poverty Law Center, one of the important institutions in this country who studies these issues.
Cruise ships.
Guest worker programs akin to slavery, where people came in, they were cheated, they were abused, they were humiliated, and if they stood up for their rights, they would be thrown out of the country. Of course, that type of effort leads to a race to the bottom for all of our people, and I worked very hard on that issue. And of course, I supported the 2013 immigration reform bill. And what I believe right now is not only that we need comprehensive immigration reform, if the Congress does not do its job as President of the United States, I will use the executive powers of that office to do what has to be done, to do what President Obama did, and expand on that.
But if you're saying that you would expand on the executive actions, how do you know that they're not going to end up in a legal battle? Just
Well,
like
we do the best we don't know. And I should also say, with regard to that 2007 immigration bill, as you may know, LULAC, the major Hispanic organization in this country, also opposed that bill, as did many other Latino organizations. But to your point, we have to do the best that we can. I applaud President Obama for his efforts in DAPA and DACA, and I think we have got to expand those efforts.
If I could, I think it's very hard to make the case that Ted Kennedy, Barack Obama, me, La Raza, United Farm Workers, Dolores Huerta, leaders of the Latino community would have supported a bill that actually promoted modern slavery. That was one of the many excuses used not to vote for the 2007 bill. And I will go back to what I said. If we had been able to get that passed, we would be so much further along now. I'm committed to defending DAPA and DACA. I'm committed to going even further to get more people deferred action, to go as far as I can under the law. And I am committed to introducing comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship in the first 100 days of my presidency.
Secretary Clinton prevailed upon the governor of New York, Eliot Spitzer, who wanted to do the right thing and provide driver's license to those who are undocumented. She said, don't do it, and New York State still does not do it. In Vermont, by the way, I work with officials, and undocumented people in Vermont do get a driver's license. When we talk about immigration, the Secretary of one of the great human tragedies of recent years is children came from Honduras, where there's probably more violence than almost any place in this country. And they came into this country. And I said, welcome those children into this country. Secretary Clinton said, send them back. That's a difference.
Let me respond again, because the misrepresentation can't go unanswered here. First of all, that is something that is not fair about what I said. I did say we needed to be very concerned about little children coming to this country very often, many of them not making it. And when they got here, they needed, as I have argued for, legal counsel, due process, to make a decision. We need to end private detention. We need to end family detention. And in 2006, when Senator Sanders was running for the Senate from Vermont, he voted in the House with hardline Republicans for indefinite detention for undocumented immigrants. And then he sided with those Republicans to stand with vigilantes known as Minutemen, who were taking up outposts along the border to hunt down immigrants. So I think when you were running for the Senate, you made it clear by your vote, Senator, that you were going to stand with the Republicans. When you got to the Senate in 2007, one of the first things you did was vote against Ted Kennedy's immigration reform, which he'd been working on for years before you ever arrived.
Let me respond to that. You know, Ted Kennedy was a very close friend of mine, and I served on the committee that he chaired, the Health, Education, Labor Committee. And Ted Kennedy was kind enough to allow me to hold a hearing in 2008, I believe, in Congress dealing with the plight of undocumented tomato pickers in Immokalee, Florida. And I went there on my own, wasn't an issue really for the state of Vermont, to expose the horrendous working conditions and the semi-slavery, if you like, that those workers live under. And the result of that hearing and the work that many, many people did was to significantly improve the wages and working conditions of those workers.
Senator Secretary, we're going to take a break and we'll continue talking about immigration when we come back.
Great.
So, llega el momento de hablar de las deportaciones.
So this is the moment of talking about it. All right, you guys. So, I mean, this debate has gone off to a great start, I believe. I think they've been asking some real hard-hitting questions. So far, what do you guys think? Alex, Jose, Wes, Elena, what do you guys think so far? And thank you, Jose, for joining us tonight on DINtv.com.
For sure.
All right. So far, what do you guys feel about Bernie's and Hillary's stances on immigration and supplying jobs to people of minorities? Definitely. I feel like a lot of the answers that Hillary gave were very hard hitting, in a sense that if Bernie was not who he was, he could have like flustered during those answers. So his rebuttals are really good. So far, I think Bernie's been keeping up really well with Hillary's intense answering of those questions. What do you think?
May I say?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. From my end, I really positively surprised by the questions.
Mm-hmm.
For the first time ever since debate started last year, I hear some real question that really actual, not a bullshit that usually ask. So, yeah, good job. Really appreciate it. Really.
Because even when they're not answering the question, the moderator's like, "Well, you still haven't answered the question. What is the answer?" And I like that. Mm-hmm. So I mean, the Latino fire, like Miami, we don't play here in Miami. We don't play. We real, true transparent. Definitely. Mm-hmm. Our users always have some cool information. All the memes that you see posted there are things that users from the outside are actually posting on DINtv.com. So if you guys want to post anything, just put it in the DIN feed and we can start. So you guys can share your content with us.
Any insights.
Yes. So far they've touched upon, I believe, immigration. That's been the huge topic. I think you can't go into a Latino sponsored debate without mentioning something about immigration or anything like that. So most definitely. Mm-hmm. I'm one step ahead of you right now. CNN is not even the one that's holding the debate. They're just streaming it. Univision is the one that's hosting it. Yeah, that's why it's in Spanish and they're dubbing. So CNN doesn't even have the balls to ask these candidates the questions because they're so connected with the corporations. And it's funny because people project that Hillary has the minority vote, but from what the moderators who are minorities that are asking these questions, it seems like it's steered towards her being flippy-floppy with a lot of her policies and calling her out on it. So,
Alex, who do you mean the biggest contributors to Clinton? Jeff Zucker? Because Jeff Zucker is the CEO or the president of CNN International. Oh,
Ooh, that's juicy. That's some juicy inside information. Thank you for that.
Yeah, because I'm a little bit familiar. Yes. Okay. Yes. We have some common friends.
I mean, that should be interesting to see how that turns out with the rest of the debate, because I want to see some more questions that just get Hillary. I'm not going to answer that. That doesn't deserve an answer. Girl, are you... Yeah, she dodged it. I think Univision wants those ratings, honestly, because they're not usually known for doing any political debates like that. So getting those hard hitting questions televised would be good. So let's go back to it and see what they're saying right now. Let's unmute it. All right, it's reloading. They gave her a seat. She couldn't handle it anymore. She's just...
And can you promise that you won't deport?
Here's what I can promise, Jorge. I can promise that I will do everything possible to provide due process.
Will you deport children?
Let me say this. I would give every person, but particularly children, due process to have their story told. And a lot of children will, of course, have very legitimate stories under our law to be able to say.
So, Secretary, you seem to be defending President Obama's deportation policies, and as you know, so far he has deported more than 2.5 million immigrants. So, if you really don't want to be the next deporter in chief, can you promise tonight?
All these puns tonight, man.
That you won't deport children and that you won't deport immigrants who don't have a criminal record? And this time, could I get a yes or no answer?
Yes, you can, because the question you were asking me were about children seeking asylum. And we have laws. That was the most critical thing I said, under our laws. I would like to see those laws changed. I would like to see added to them a guaranteed counsel and other support for children. But if you're asking about everyone who's already here, undocumented immigrants, the 11, 12 million who are living here, my priorities are to deport violent criminals, terrorists, and anyone who threatens our safety. So I do not have the same policy as the current administration does. I think it's important that we move toward comprehensive immigration reform, but at the same time, stop the raids, stop the roundups, stop the deporting of people who are living here, doing their lives, doing their jobs, and that's my priority.
But again, yes or no, can you promise tonight that you won't deport children who are here?
I will not deport children. I would not deport children. I do not want to deport family members either, Jorge. I want to, as I said, prioritize who would be deported. Violent criminals, people planning terrorist attacks, anybody who threatens us. That's a relatively small universe.
So I want to be very specific. So you're telling us tonight that if you become president, you won't deport children who are already here?
I will not.
And that you won't deport immigrants who don't have a criminal record?
That's what I'm telling you. Now, I don't want, because I'm not contradicting what I told you in the interview. Asylum is a particular legal, I'd like to see us give more support to people who come fleeing the terrible violence that they do. But under our law, we have a process we have to go through, which is different.
You would stop those deportations?
I would stop
the deportations for children?
Yes.
And those who don't have a criminal record?
Of the people, the undocumented people living in our country, I do not want to see them deported. I want to see them on a path to citizenship. That is exactly what
Senator Sanders, can you promise us tonight that you won't deport children?
Let me just say this. I don't think that the secretary fully answered your question. And I think the proof may be in the pudding. Honduras, in that region of the world, may be the most violent region in our hemisphere. Gang lords, vicious people, torturing people, doing horrible things to families. Children fled that part of the world to try, maybe, meet up with their family members in this country, taking a route that was horrific, trying to start a new life. Secretary Clinton did not support those children coming into this country. I did. Now, I have to agree with President Obama on many, many issues. I think he's done a great job as President of the United States. He is wrong on this issue of deportation. I disagree with him on that. So to answer your question, no, I will not deport children from the United States of America.
And can you promise not to deport immigrants who don't have a criminal record?
I can make that promise.
Okay.
This is why I go back to that 2007 vote, because if we had been successful then, a lot of the issues we are still discussing today would be in the rearview mirror. I want us to be able to achieve comprehensive immigration reform if I'm so fortunate enough to be president. And we do have to take a look at asylum laws. When I was Secretary of State, I worked to try to support many different approaches to ending the violence in Central America. I was there meeting with leaders, security leaders, and others, and I think the Congress should support the President's request to fund programs that would protect people and change the culture of criminality and violence in Central America, helping people be able to stay safely in their homes and countries.
Let me just answer. I want to get back to this 2007 immigration bill. It's true that Ted Kennedy, a good friend of mine, and I think of the secretaries, did work very hard on that bill. But does anyone really believe that if that bill was all so good as the secretary is touting, that LULAC and other major Latino organizations, the largest Latino organizations in this country, said no to that bill? And I worked very hard in improving the guest worker provisions so that in 2013, a bill I strongly supported, people who are in the guest worker program in America would not be treated like slaves.
Well, let me just conclude by saying that United Farm Workers considered that bill, in their words, the last best hope for farm workers and immigrants. They have proven to be right in the succeeding years. I only hope that we can put together a coalition to pass comprehensive immigration reform in the next Congress. And as I said earlier, in 2006, Senator Sanders supported indefinite detention for people facing deportation and stood with the Minutemen vigilantes in their ridiculous, absurd efforts to, quote, hunt down immigrants. So, look, I think the goal here is to elect a Democratic Senate, elect a Democratic president, and get to work immediately to get comprehensive immigration.
Did you support the Minutemen? I'm sorry? Did you support the Minutemen as Secretary?
Of course not. There was a piece of legislation supported by dozens and dozens of members of the House which codified existing legislation. What the Secretary is doing tonight, and has done very often, is take large pieces of legislation and take pieces out of it. No, I did not oppose the bailout or the support of the automobile industry. No, I do not support vigilantes, and that is a horrific statement, an unfair statement to make. I will stand in terms of my political career, fighting for workers, fighting for the poorest people in this country. Madam Secretary, I will match my record against yours any day of the week.
Let's talk about the auto bailout, because I think it's important for people to understand what happened. In December of 2008, we were both in the Senate. There was a vote on a freestanding bill to rescue the auto industry. We both voted for it. It was the right vote. Unfortunately, it did not succeed. The Republicans marshaled the votes against it. A month later, in January, a new piece of legislation was offered that contained the money that would be used for the auto rescue. Then President-elect Obama, before he'd even been sworn in, sent word to all of us that he really hoped we would support it. He was still in the Senate. I was still in the Senate. And I voted for it. It was a hard vote. I'll tell you, it was a hard vote. a lot of the votes you make are hard votes. But the fact is, the money that rescued the auto industry was in that bill.
Secretary.
Now, Senator Sanders voted against it. That's his perfect right to vote against it. But if everyone had voted as he voted, we would not have rescued the auto
So that everybody knows the bill that Secretary Clinton is talking about. That was the bailout of the recklessness, irresponsibility, and illegal behavior of Wall Street. It was the Wall Street bailout. And I find it interesting that when Secretary Clinton was the former senator of New York, of course, when she defended her vote, she says, well, it's going to help the big banks in New York. Those are my constituents. And then you go to Detroit and suddenly this legislation helps the automobile workers. There was an article just yesterday where people like Senator Bayh and Ron Wyden, former senators said, no, this wasn't the automobile bailout.
We have to move on, Senator. The time is up. We have to move on. Next question, Secretary Clinton. You recently said, instead of building walls, we need to tear down barriers. However, last November in New Hampshire, you openly said that as senator, you voted numerous times to build the wall with Mexico. What's the difference between what you did, voting to build a wall, and what Donald Trump wants to do now?
Well, I think both of us, both Senator Sanders and I, voted numerous times to enhance border security along our border. We increased the number of border security agents. We did vote for money to build a fence, a pedestrian fence in some place, a vehicle fence in other places. And the result is that we have the most secure border we've ever had. Apprehensions coming across the border are the lowest they've been in 40 years, which just strengthens my argument that now it's time to do comprehensive immigration reform. The Republicans, the opponents, no longer have an argument. And certainly we hear a lot coming from the Republican side that is absolutely out of touch with reality. We raised money through the congressional appropriations process. We enhanced the border security. That part of the work is done. Everybody that I know has looked at it says, okay, we have a secure border. There's no need for this rhetoric and demagoguery that still is carried out on the Republican side. You've brought out to comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship, and I think that makes a very strong argument in favor of doing it.
But the question is, what is the difference between the wall that you voted for and Donald Trump's wall?
It's a big difference. I mean, first of all, as I understand him, he's talking about, right? A beautiful tall wall, better than the Great Wall of China, that would run the entire border, that he would somehow magically get the Mexican government to pay for. And, you know, it's just fantasy. And in fact, if he cared to know anything about what members of Congress like the senator and I have done, where it was necessary, we did support some fencing. Where it was necessary, we did add border patrol agents. We have done what by any fair estimate would have to conclude is a good job, quote, securing the border. So let's get about the business of comprehensive immigration reform.
Let me just,
Senator.
The Secretary and I mostly, I think, agree on this issue. Look, in this country, immigration reform is a very hot debate. It's divided the country. But I would have that debate. We do not, as Donald Trump and others have done, resort to racism and xenophobia and bigotry. This idea of suddenly one day or maybe a night rounding up 11 million people and taking them outside of this country is a vulgar, absurd idea that I would hope very few people in America support.
Senator, thank you. Now we have a question from the audience, for both of you. Tenemos una pregunta de nuestra audiencia. Pasamos.
Question
Muchísimas gracias, María Elena. Secretaria Clinton, senador Sanders, quiero presentarles a Lucía Quieje. Ella es una inmigrante guatemalteca, está aquí con sus 5 hijos, quienes no han visto a su padre desde que fue deportado hace 3 años. Immigrant from Guatemala, she's here with her 5 children who have not seen their father since he was deported 3 years ago. She has a question for both of you. Doña Lucía, ¿qué le quiere preguntar a los candidatos?
Quiero yo preguntarle que yo tengo un gran dolor, yo y mis hijos, todos sin tener licencia, por no tener licencia. Era un hombre trabajador, del campo de la construcción. ¿Qué pueden hacer ustedes para parar las deportaciones y reunificar las familias?
Senator Sanders, as you can see, this is a very painful and personal issue for Lucia and her family. She wants to know what you will do to stop deportations, but most importantly, to reunite families like hers.
Well, I absolutely support that. At the heart of my immigration policy, and I should say that the New York Times editorial board called my immigration policy the most progressive and the strongest of any candidate running. But to answer your question, the essence of what we are trying to do is to unite families, not to divide families. The idea that a mother is living here and her children are on the other side of the border is wrong and immoral. A number of months ago, I talked to a young man who was serving in the United States military. And while he was serving in the military, his wife was deported. That is beyond comprehension and policies that should not be allowed to exist. So, ma'am, I will do everything that I can to unite your family. Your children deserve to be with their mother.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Yes. Secretaria Clinton, usted también ha dicho que no quiere separar a más familias, pero ¿cuál es su plan para reunificar a familias como la de Lucía y para unir a miles de niños estadounidenses con sus padres? Secretary Clinton, you've also said you want to stop deportations, but what's your plan to reunite families and thousands of children, U.S. citizens, with their parents?
First of all, please know how brave I think you are coming here with your children to tell your story. This is an incredible act of courage that I'm not sure many people really understand. And I want you to know that in the work that I've done and the many families that I've met, I have heard similar stories like yours, where your husband is deported, your children's father is gone. You are doing your very best to support your children, but it is time to bring families together. And I don't think there's any doubt that we must do more to let stories like yours be heard more widely so that more Americans know what the human cost of these policies are. And I will do everything I can to prevent other families from facing what you are facing. And I will do everything I can to pass laws that would bring families back together. And I hope that your children are all either citizens born in this country or eligible for the programs that President Obama has put into place, DACA and DAPA, because I will defend those and I will absolutely protect your children, yourself, and try to bring your family back together.
Gracias, Secretary Clinton. Thank you, Secretary Clinton. They are U.S. citizens. Your 5 children are U.S. citizens. Thank you. Now let's go back to Karen.
Thank you, Enrique. Secretary Clinton, a Washington Post poll just yesterday found that only 37% of Americans consider you honest and trustworthy. Now, when you've been asked about this in the past, you have said that this is the result of many, many years of Republican attacks upon you. But Americans have also had 25, more than that, years to get to know you for themselves. Is there anything in your own actions and the decisions that you yourself have made that would foster this kind of mistrust?
Well, first, Karen, obviously it's painful for me to hear that. And I do take responsibility when you're in public life, even if you believe that it's not an opinion that you think is fair or founded, you do have to take responsibility, and I do. And I also have, very much committed to the best of my ability, my energies and efforts to helping people. That's something that I care deeply about, and I will continue to do that, to demonstrate by my past actions and my present levels of commitment and plans that people can count on me. That is certainly what happened to me in New York, where people got to know me, they saw me in action, and they did. Look, I have said before, and it won't surprise anybody to hear me say it, this is not easy for me. It's not easy to do what I think is right, to help people, to even the odds, to hear a story like the woman's story we just heard, and to know that I can make a difference and I want to in every way possible. I am not a natural politician, in case you haven't noticed, like my husband or President Obama. So I have a view that I just have to do the best I can, get the results I can, make a difference in people's lives, and hope that people will see that I'm fighting for them and that I can improve conditions economically and other ways that will benefit them and their families.
Thank you. Thank you. Senator Sanders, you have demanded that Secretary Clinton release the transcripts of her paid Wall Street speeches. Why is this important? Do you have reason to believe that she says one thing in private and another in public?
Well, what I have said is that when you get, I believe it is $225,000 for giving a speech, and she gave several speeches to Goldman Sachs, one of the Wall Street financial institutions whose greed and illegal behavior helped destroy our economy a number of years ago. When you get paid $225,000, that means that that speech must have been an extraordinarily wonderful speech.
So does this mean that you would not think she would have to disclose?
I would think that a speech so great that you got paid so much money for, you would like to share it with the American people. So I think she should.
So you're saying that the
Secretary said,
what she can do in these circumstances only pretend
I didn't give any speeches, there is no transcript.
But my question was, do you think she's saying one thing in these speeches and another in public?
That is exactly what releasing the transcripts will tell us. This I do know. This I do know.
That's the perfect answer to that question.
There is a reason why Wall Street has provided $15 million just in the last reporting period to the Secretary's super PAC. Now, the Secretary says it doesn't influence her. Well, that's what every politician says who gets money from special interest. The question that the American people have to determine, you could say that Wall Street is greedy, they're fraudulent, but they're not dumb.
Thank you, Senator.
Why are they making those kind of large contributions?
Thank you. Your time is up.
Well, let me respond, as I have numerous times during this campaign. I have a public record, and you can go look it up. I went to Wall Street before the Great Recession and basically called them out, said that their behavior was putting our economy at risk, called for a moratorium on foreclosures. I went to the Orlando area during the 2008 campaign to make the same case, visiting with families who had been defrauded by mortgages, these subprime mortgages that put them and their homes at risk.
Thank you, Secretary Clinton.
I called for those changes,
time
I
is
have
up,
been
Hillary.
on the record, and
Hillary,
now I
your
do
time's
have
up.
the toughest, most comprehensive plan to go after Wall Street, and not just the
Hillary,
big banks,
Hillary, I'm
all
gonna
the
ask you
other
to please-
financial interests
Hillary.
that pose a threat to our economy. And I have said no bank is too
Hillary, your
big to
time is
fail,
up.
and no executive is too powerful to jail, and I will use the powers that have now been passed by the Congress, by President Obama, who incidentally took a lot of money from Wall Street, which didn't stop him from signing into law the toughest regulations on the financial industry since the Great
Clearly, the Secretary's words to Wall Street has really intimidated them. And that is why they have given her $15 million in campaign contributions.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Is, in fact, that we have a corrupt campaign finance system. And it's not just Wall Street, it's the drug companies who receive millions of dollars from the fossil fuel industry. We've got to overturn Citizens United.
I just think it's worth pointing out that the leaders of the fossil fuel industry, the Koch brothers, have just paid to put up an ad praising Senator Sanders. You know, there are a lot of different powerful interests in Washington. I've taken them on. I took on the drug companies. I took on the insurance companies. Before there was something called Obamacare, there was something called Hillary Care, and I worked really hard and some health care reform, and they beat me. So I have a long record of standing up to special interests, and I will continue to do so.
We're going to move on to the next question. And it's
can I just
Everybody loves Bernie, man. They are feeling
There is nobody in the United States Congress who has taken on the Koch brothers who want to destroy Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and virtually every federal program passed since the 1930s more than Bernie Sanders. And I am proud that the gentleman who is head of Goldman Sachs, now he didn't give me $225,000 for speaking fees. He said I was dangerous, and he's right. I am dangerous for Wall
I get Senator Sanders that the Koch brothers, as you said, are sensible with how they use their money, and I agree with you. They stand for things that I find abhorrent, that would be bad for our country, bad for our future. But they did just put up a little video praising you for being the only Democrat who stood with the Republicans to try to eliminate the Export-Import Bank, which has helped hundreds and hundreds of companies here in Florida be able to export their goods and employ more Floridians. So, from my perspective,
Let me respond. The Export-Import Bank is often called the Bank of Boeing because Boeing Corporation 40% of the revenue is corporate welfare, and yes, I oppose corporate welfare.
Okay, next. Yes. Next question. I'm gonna continue with the issue of trust. Secretary Clinton. On the night of the attack, you sent an email to your daughter Chelsea saying that Al-Qaeda was responsible for the killing of the Americans. However, some of the families claim that you lied to them. Here's Pat Smith, the Mother Information Officer, Shan Smith. Let's listen.
And Obama and Panetta and Biden and all and Susan Rice all told me it was a video when they knew it was not the video. And they said that they would call me and let me know what the outcome was.
Secretary Clinton, did you lie to them?
You know, look, I feel a great deal of sympathy for the families of the 4 brave Americans that we lost at Benghazi. They can't imagine the grief that she had for losing her son. but she's wrong. She's absolutely.
Can you guys hear me?
We can.
She's angry. Yo, I'm loving this debate. This is by far my favorite, actually. I'm actually getting answers to like questions that I was going to ask them. So this is awesome. Are you guys liking it so far? I kind of want to know. Okay, you guys, I actually have a link here too.
Wrong. I and everybody in the president, the vice president, Susan Rice, we were scrambling to get information that was changing literally by the hour. And when we had information, we made it public, but then sometimes we had to go back and say we have new information that contradicts it. So I testified for 11 hours. Anybody who watched that and listened to it knows that I am. Every question that I was asked, and when it was over, the Republicans had to admit they didn't learn anything. Why? Because there had already been one independent investigation. There had been 7 or 8 congressional investigations, mostly led by Republicans, who all reached the same conclusions, that there were lessons to be learned. And this is not the first time we lost Americans in a terrorist attack. We lost 3,000 people on 9/11. We lost Americans living in Tanzania and Kenya when my husband was president.
She just lost
over 250.
She literally should have never gone to that.
What she said?
She said, we lose Americans through terrorist attacks every day, and look at 9/11.
Both military and civilian. Reagan was president in Beirut, and at no other time of those tragedies were they politicized. Instead, people said, let's learn the lesson and save lives, and that's what I did.
Secretary Clinton, what they are saying is that what the families are saying is that you told your daughter Chelsea one thing and a different thing to them.
Well, but Jorge, that makes my point. At the time I emailed with my daughter, a terrorist group had taken credit for the attacks on our facility in Benghazi. Within 16, 18 hours, they rescinded taking credit. They did it all on social media. And the video did play a role. We have, and he admits it was both a terrorist attack and it was influenced by the video. This was fog of war. This was complicated. The most effective, comprehensive reports and studies demonstrate that. And look, as I said in the beginning, I deeply regret that we lost 4 Americans. And I, of course, sympathize with members of the families who are still, very much grieving. And I wish that there could be an easy answer at the time, but we learned a lot, and the intelligence kept improving, and we learned enough to say what we think happened at Benghazi.
You have 30 seconds, Senator.
Well, I'm not going to comment on the Benghazi tragedy, but I will say this. A series of articles in the New York Times talked about Secretary Clinton's role in urging the administration to go forward with regime change, getting rid of Gaddafi in Libya. Gaddafi was a brutal dictator, there's no question. But one of the differences between the Secretary and I is I'm not quite so aggressive with regard to regime change. I voted against the war in Iraq because I had a fear of what would happen the day after. Secretary Clinton talks about Henry Kissinger winning the praise of Henry Kissinger. I don't want Henry Kissinger's praise at all.
We're taking a break. Vámonos a una pausa.
pausa comercial y continuamos con temas que le interesan a los hispanos como
Cool. This, wow. It's like a paradise.
All right, so what are you guys feeling so far? There's been a lot of talking points so far, and I feel like we're actually getting answers. I don't know. You tell me. Do you have? Is it on?
You need to click refresh and maybe click shift and then click refresh your browser, and it should be back, I think.
I just refreshed you, Alex. It's gonna ask you to All right. Hopefully it works for him. But let's see if he's on. Do you see yourself? No, I don't see you either. All right, it's fine. So tell us, what are you liking so far? Like, what are you hearing that's really making you actually enjoy this debate? Definitely. Mm-hmm. That's a whole nother story. That's what I tell people. I don't understand these numbers that Hillary's is getting, because when I go out and I hear people talk, nobody's for Hillary. Like, nobody likes her. So I don't understand why they keep projecting these numbers that in turn don't reflect anything. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What else do they have better to do? They're at home watching the TV. They get so excited. It's like, oh, today's like an event. Like, I'm going to go. I'm going to put on my favorite church dress, church hat, and I'm going to go to, and I'm going to vote for my boy Trump or my girl Hillary. It's basically
answering on your question, Kevin, about polls. Listen, who orders the polls? They get in the results. They ordered the results. So, of course, it never done directly. It just through some intermediary things. So, but here it is. It just not leverage, the tool for manipulation. That's it.
Mm-hmm. And that system doesn't work anymore. This generation proves it. We're not. Mm-hmm. Or people. And they get excited. Like, they'll talk to you for hours on the phone. I used to work customer service, and they love when people call them. It's like the only call they get for the year. But let's go back and see what they're saying over here. That was kind of mean. I'm sorry for my elderlies out there.
About the deportations and raids, in your opinion, who defended him or himself better?
Why are they putting that color?
The immigration proposal.
She looks like a plum.
That's
Yeah,
the
she looks like a
good
huge
action
plum.
of talking, explaining. But what concerned me a bit is that we have seen the plan of Senator Bernie Sanders, but we have not seen a plan in writing from Secretary Hillary Clinton. So we want to see what she says, if it is important. The 6 months that we have seen two immigration is concerned, and we see that they're moving towards the community needs to not only immigration reform, but the rates have to stop. Families that we have seen that are suffering, they have to be reunited. We heard a very emotional testimony of a mother that was brave enough to come here with her 5 children. How did you feel when you heard her story, and you think that if the candidates had empathy with this story, I believe that this was the saddest moment that we had here at the debate. A mother with her children separated from her husband, and those children suffering because they do not have their father. And this is what we see that is happening, that Republicans are doing by not approving a migratory reform, but also President Obama. So we need not only words, but plans as well. And we need, as a community, to all stand up and support women as her. Thank you, Gabby. And now the Democratic debate continues with Jorge Ramos and Maria Elena Salita.
Continue with the debate now. Senator Sanders, you call your opponent Hillary Clinton an establishment politician. You yourself are a career politician. Why should voters prefer a...
Oh my God.
Country and punish those companies that want to export jobs. We need
career politician over an establishment
politician.
politician.
Well, you got to look at what the career is about.
Okay. Damn it.
In this country, I don't take money from Wall Street. I demand that we break up the large financial institutions. I don't take
Karen, you maybe play from YouTube.
Yeah, I have it ready.
Sanders said was too weak, but I helped to lay the groundwork for that. But we need more clean energy jobs. And we have to do more to help small businesses. You know, the fastest growing segment of small businesses are minority and women-owned small businesses, and we need to help businesses get started. The very distinguished Congresswoman from New York, who's been on the Small Business Committee, Congresswoman Velasquez, knows exactly what we need to be doing to create more small businesses. We do need to raise the minimum wage, and we have to guarantee equal pay for women.
Secretary,
that will help Latinos as well as every other working person in our country.
Secretary, you talked in general terms, but you haven't really said what you would specifically do to improve the living conditions of Latinos.
Everything
I love her face when she said that to her too.
And I've spent a lot of time and effort talking to and mostly listening to Latinos. Jobs are the #1 issue with rising incomes. Close behind is education. Every child deserves a good teacher in a good school, regardless of the zip code that they live in. Following behind that is healthcare, and how important it is to continue to build on the Affordable Care Act and provide access to health care. And then there are a number of other issues, comprehensive immigration reform certainly being
Your time is up,
at the
Secretary.
top.
Sorry, your time is up.
Okay, let me answer that question because it's a...
That's what it is on the left. It's the same thing.
And one of
I think this is like a couple seconds ahead of it though. Or behind it,
One
actually.
of the points that I've been making, and media does not seem to pick up on it, is that we have a real crisis, not only with real unemployment in America.
Can Bernie run against himself? This is what it looks like.
But youth unemployment in this country. If you look at Latino kids between 17 and 20.
Do you guys prefer this string better than the other one?
36% of them are unemployed or underemployed.
Time is up.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Can I have a little bit of time here, please? African-American kids are unemployed or underemployed to the tune of 51%. That's why I co-sponsored legislation to put $5 billion into a jobs program to put our kids to work, because I would rather invest in education than jobs, than jails and incarceration.
Great answer.
We've got to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. The United States has got to join in the rest
Wait, you can't hear it on your end?
civilized world in guaranteeing
Can you hear it on
healthcare to all people as a right. We need to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure.
You know what it
and
is?
when we do that under my plan, we create 13 million decent paying jobs.
They can't hear it.
Senator.
YouTube link.
Education, Senator, I'll continue
Yeah.
with you.
You have to unmute YouTube from your end.
No, I did not propose free college tuition.
Oh, it's still buffering.
I proposed
Okay. Hold on. Let me try to build it again. Because we were experiencing that the other day too.
Millions of students who can actually afford college would
Did it load up for you guys?
Is that right?
No, what they would, look, this is what.
Can you see it on your end now?
This is the year 2016. 50 years ago, a high school degree got you a good job in the economy. Today, in many respects, a college degree
let's go back to the Gen Live and see if that
just levels of student debt.
Because my question was, if you think, for instance, Donald Trump's grandchildren or Hillary Clinton's grandchildren, should they be able to go to college for free?
Absolutely. They can go to, I don't think they will, but Donald Trump's kids can go to public school right now. I think Secretary Clinton is talking about making community colleges free. They can go to those things. The point is, we're going to get to Donald Trump by raising the taxes on the top 1% and on millionaires and billionaires. But all of our people, in my view, regardless of income, should have a right to get a higher education. I want children in the 3rd grade to know that if they study hard, no matter what the income of their families. My family didn't have any income. My parents didn't go to college. You didn't have good income. I want every kid to know if you do your schoolwork, study hard, yes, you will be able to get a college education.
We'll continue talking about education for that. We go, Enrique Acevedo has the question. Enrique Acevedo, tu pregunta.
Muchas gracias, Jorge. Secretaria Clinton, acabamos de escuchar la posición del senador Sanders sobre colegiaturas gratuitas, pero hay millones de estadounidenses, de estudiantes que no pueden pagar sus préstamos. María Martínez tiene 20 años y es un estudiante de ciencia política. We just heard about free tuition from Senator Sanders, but right now there are millions of students who can't afford to pay their loans. María Martínez is 20 years old and she's a major of political science at Miami-Dade College.
Buenas noches. Yo quiero sacar un doctorado, pero para hacerlo voy a tener que pedir un préstamo estudiantil. ¿Qué van a hacer para ayudar a pagar la deuda de esta generación?
Secretary Clinton, she says she wants to go to grad school and get a PhD. What are you going to do to help her achieve that goal and pay off her student debt?
Well, congratulations on your education and also on your plans for the future. And here's what I will do. We're going to refinance everyone's existing student debt. 40 million Americans have student debt. And right now, I go around asking people at my events if they know what their interest rate is. And the interest rates literally go from like 8 to 14%. It's outrageous that at a time when interest rates have been historically low, people borrowing money to invest in their education are paying some of the highest interest rates around. And you can refinance your house to get a lower interest rate. You can refinance your car. Corporations can refinance their debt. Under my plan, you will be able to also lower your debt, move into a program to pay it back as a percentage of your income. And more than that, my plan for debt-free tuition at public and colleges and universities will eventually eliminate any student debt. But for people who have it, I'm going to put a date certain that after a certain number of years, you no longer have to pay anything. The government has to quit making money off of lending money to young people to get their education.
Karen, let's go back to you.
I think that what Secretary Clinton just said is absolutely right. I think I said it many months before she said it, but thanks for copying a very good idea. The question, though, I have been criticized a lot.
Yes.
For believing that we could do great things as a nation. One of the things we should not be doing, obviously, is punishing people for doing what we want them to do, and that is to get an education. But here is the point. My program, making public colleges and universities tuition-free, allowing people with debt to refinance at the lowest possible interest rates, is a fairly expensive proposal. It's about $70 billion a year. Do you know how I'm going to pay for it? I'm going to pay for it by imposing a tax on Wall Street speculation. We bailed out, Secretary Clinton was one of those who voted to bail out Wall Street. Now I think it's time for Wall Street to help the working families of this country. Thank you very much.
I'm going to respond to that because I think this is a very important issue. And by the way, everybody who, quote, got money in the, quote, bailout that also included money for the auto rescue has paid it back. So the Treasury was out nothing. Now that will no longer happen because we have Dodd-Frank, and we will break up banks that pose a systemic threat to our economy. But let me say this. you know, Senator Sanders has talked about free college for everybody. He's talked about universal single-payer health care for everybody. And yet, when you ask questions, as many of us have, and more importantly, independent experts, it's very hard to get answers. And a lot of the answers say that, you know, this is going to be much more expensive than anything Senator Sanders is admitting to. This is going to increase the federal government dramatically. And, you know, my dad used to say, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And we deserve answers about how these programs would actually work and how they would be paid for.
I want you all to think what Secretary Clinton is saying is that the United States should continue to be the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee health care to all of our people. I think if the rest of the world can do it, we can. And by the way, not only are we being ripped off by the drug companies, we are spending far, far more per capita on health care than any other major country on earth. You may not think the American people are prepared to stand up to the insurance companies or the drug companies. I think they are.
This is a very important point in this debate because I do believe in universal coverage. Remember, I fought for it 25 years ago. I believe in it, and I know that the Affordable Care Act, we are now at 90% of universal coverage. I will build on the Affordable Care Act. I will take it further. I will reduce the cost. But I just respectfully disagree between the Republicans trying to repeal the first chance we've ever had to get to universal health care and Senator Sanders wanting to throw us into a contentious debate over single payer. I think the smart approach is build on and protect the Affordable Care Act, make it work, reduce the cost.
Okay. I'm on the committee. I know a little bit about this. I'm on the committee, Health Education Labor Committee, that helped write the Affordable Care Act. And it has done a number of good things. But when Secretary Clinton says, well, 90% of the people have insurance, yeah, not really. Many of you may have insurance, but you have outrageously high deductibles and co-payments. 1 out of 5 Americans cannot afford the prescription drugs their doctors prescribe. Elderly people are cutting their pills in half. I do believe that we should do what every other major country on earth does, and I think when the American people stand up and fight back, yeah, we can have Medicare for all health care.
I'm going to call time here because I want to move on to a subject that more than 24 Florida mayors have asked us to raise with you. They have asked us to share with you their concern over the effects of rising sea levels and climate change in their communities. Just take a look at this map. You can see that no state has more at stake than Florida does, and no city has more at stake than Miami, the city in which we are sitting. But many Republicans argue that this is not a man-made problem. Senator Sanders, is it possible to move forward on this issue if you do not get a bipartisan consensus? And what would you do?
Well, first of all, Karen, when you have Republican candidates for president and in Congress telling you that climate change is a hoax, which is Donald Trump and other candidates' position, what they are really saying is we don't have the guts to take on the fossil fuel industry. What candidates are saying is that we stand up to the fossil fuel industry and transform our energy system away from coal and oil and gas to energy efficiency and wind and solar and geothermal and other sustainable technologies. You know what happens to that Republican who listens to the scientists? On that day, that Republican loses his campaign funding for the Koch brothers and the fossil fuel industry.
So you've just described the problem, but how would you move forward given that this is the situation?
The way I would move forward in every other area. And what we are doing in this campaign is fighting not only to become president, but I'm the only candidate who says no president, not Bernie Sanders, can do it all. You know what we need, Karen? We need a political revolution in this country. And when millions of people stand up and tell the fossil fuel industry that their profits, their short-term profits, are less significant than the long-term health of this planet, we will win. That is the way change always takes place.
Secretary Clinton, can you do this without a bipartisan consensus? No major environmental legislation has ever passed without bipartisan votes.
Well, Karen, first of all, I was proud to have a number of mayors from Florida campaign for me in South Carolina. I had a chance to talk to some of them about this issue. It is a really serious one, and there isn't much time left to do several things that I will move quickly to do.
Which are?
You can see already what's happening in Miami, particularly Miami Beach, with tides rising. So we do have to invest in resilience and mitigation while we are trying to cut emissions and make up for the fact that this is clearly man-made and man-aggravated. And there are certain things that the president has done through executive action that I will absolutely support. All the Republicans say they will, if they're elected, heaven forbid, repeal all of those executive actions. I will maintain them and act on them. The Clean Power Plan is something that Senator Sanders has said he would delay implementing, which makes absolutely no sense. We need to implement all of the president's executive actions and quickly move to make a bridge from coal to natural gas to clean energy. That is the way we will keep the lights on while we are transitioning to a clean energy future. And when I talk about resilience, I think that is an area we can get Republican support on.
Wait a second, so I agree with that. I thought they should measure.
Excuse me.
Did you ask me to speak?
You can finish, Secretary, and we'll have 30 seconds.
There is a lot of legitimate concern. You don't have to do much more than look at rising insurance rates.
Secretary, thank you very much.
Most of the property in Florida will be at risk in the next 50 years. I think I can get a bipartisan consensus on resilience and then implementing the president's orders until we frankly win back enough seats, take back the Senate, and get back to bipartisan.
Go ahead, I have as much time as she just had, please.
This is your debate.
Thank you. Let's be clear. You're looking at the senator who introduced the most comprehensive climate change legislation in the history of the United States Senate. Now, I hope that Secretary Clinton will join me if we're serious about climate change, about imposing a tax on carbon on the fossil fuel industry and making massive investments in energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And by the way, while we are on the subject of energy, I hope you'll join me in ending fracking in the
You're dropped.
Secretary Clinton. Senator Elizabeth Warren says personnel is policy. And she says that there is a revolving door between Wall Street and the highest levels of economic policy making and regulation in Washington. 3 of the last 4 Treasury secretaries appointed by Democratic presidents had ties to Citigroup. Do you agree with Elizabeth Warren's criticism that both your husband's administration and President Obama's have relied too heavily on advisors who represent the worldview of the big banks?
Well, Karen, I do agree that we have to end the revolving door. I strongly support a piece of legislation from Senator Tammy Baldwin that would do just that. And I will be looking for people who will put the interests of consumers first, who will do more to try to make sure Main Street flourishes. And I will very much reach out and ask for advice as to who should be appointed, including to Senator Warren and many of my other former colleagues in the Senate. But I think it's important also to look at what we want to accomplish. You know, in the debates we've had, maybe this is the 7th or so, Senator Sanders is always criticizing the 2 recent Democratic presidents, President Clinton and President Obama. And that's fine, but I wish he would criticize and join me in criticizing George W. Bush, who I think wrecked the economy and created the conditions for the Great Recession. You know, at the end of the 90s, we had 23 million new jobs. Incomes went up for everybody. We were talking earlier about what needs to be done for Latinos and African Americans. Well, we were doing it by the end of the 90s. Median family income went up 17%. For minorities, it went up even more. Along came the Republicans. Trickle-down economics, one of the worst ideas since snake oil, was put back into place. And we ended up with the Great Recession. President Obama had to rescue the economy, and I don't think he gets the credit he deserves for doing that.
Senator Sanders, your name was mentioned.
Let me say this. I agree with that. I gather Secretary Clinton has.
Are you agreeing with Hillary?
Of my
Who's agreeing with Hillary?
Don't tell anybody.
What followed my work in the Congress, because very few people stood up to George W. Bush, whether it was the war in Iraq or any other of his policies. Now, when we talk about the policies of the 1990s, I worked closely and supported President Clinton, and obviously, I have worked very closely in supporting President
I'm gonna post it right
Obama,
now.
who has taken our economy a very long way from where Bush left us. But when you go back to the 1990s, let's remember, that's when Wall Street deregulation took place. That's when disastrous trade policies took place. So yes, good things happened, but some dangerous mistakes were made that laid the groundwork for some of the problems we're having with a disappearing middle class.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about Latin America. Vamos a hacer una pausa comercial y cuando regresemos,
To take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about Latin America. Don't leave.
These are some mess. These are some mess.
Of course, you can follow us live.
Okay, somebody has their headphones off, or it's.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah. What happens is that sometimes if somebody doesn't have their headphones in, the mic will pick up the audio. So one of the points that I want them to touch on is probably the encryption situation too. I haven't heard them mention anything about that, and that's going to be a huge battlefield in the coming months because of pretty much the internet. That's part of the internet. So I would want them to touch on that. But so far, what do you guys feel about the debate? Seems like Hillary's getting a little flustered. Yeah, she has. She's definitely wasn't. I don't think she was expecting the type of crowd that she was getting. I feel like she thought she had it in the bag. I think she thought they were going to be more supportive of her, but it seems like the minorities are loving Bernie at this rally. Yes, that was the. I love how what he does is that when she tries to chastise him about any type of policy that he hasn't signed or any type of agenda that he has, he'll turn it around and ask her, well, okay, then, since you want to jump on the bandwagon, let's go ahead. All right, let's come together. Let's come together. We're going to stop fracking because that's hurting the environment tremendously. Her face dropped because then she's just like, okay, I can't say yes because then I just said that we're going to regulate it more the other day. So like, am I just really jumping on the Bernie wagon right now if I say yes to this? So it's just like, it's just best if she just shuts up. What do you think, Wes?
Tax on you, right? I just want you to know that a carbon tax is a tax on you. You know that, right?
Yeah, why not? Who cares? Yeah, why not? I think I feel like that tax will hurt more of the factories and the corporations because, I mean, they're gonna have to pay for all the pollution that they do. And
okay.
Yeah, and that's what they're scared of. They don't want that.
Yes, that, or they'll just pass the cost right along to you. It's easy to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I feel like if they do that, that's a bad PR stunt because then you're not or create a new type of energy where we don't even need electricity anymore. Just get them out. Like I feel like they're too reassured of themselves. Like you guys can't live without us. You guys can't do anything without us. So you just adhere to the policies that we force on you, or the fees that we force on you, because we have no other alternatives. So maybe
That's
this will.
you'll need private enterprise for that. And if you're too busy paying higher electric bills and higher car bills and whatever other higher food bills, because they make this shit in factories that we eat. So when everything else goes up because of a small carbon tax, there's smaller free enterprise left to create new forms of energy. Then you're being dependent on the government. That's just what do you mean? I just told you they're not going to do anything but pass the cost along to you. That's all they will do.
So no, but they're saying basically what Wes is saying is that they're not going to change anything that they're doing. They're just going to pass along the tax to the people that are paying for the services. So basically, racking up the taxes and racking up the fees, but just funneling them so that we end up paying for it. Is that what you're saying?
You're going to pay more in your electric bill. You're going to pay more in your water bill. You're going to pay more in the food, because everything that it takes to process these things in a factory that produces carbon, they will tax them. How do they fix that in their budget? They raise your prices. It's that simple. That's simple business economics right there. If you tax somebody higher, they're just going to tax the end user higher. It's simple. Price increases are taxes, whether you want to admit it or not. But that's just something to think about. Instead of saying, yeah, let's pay them more money, how about we pay them less money so that way we have more money to put in the private enterprise to fund our new initiatives like solar power and water power and electromagnetic, earth thermonuclear power, however you want to, but you need money in the private sector to do it.
And see, I feel like I'm so surprised Bernie was mentioning all those new technologies and stuff. But let's go back and see what Hillary is saying, and then we can, once that's finished, we can start talking about it. Okay, guys?
Leaders, and I think both Castros have to be considered authoritarian and dictatorial because they are not freely chosen by the people that are in Cuba. I hope someday there will be leaders who are chosen by the Cuban people, and I hope that democracy will be deeply rooted in Cuban soil and that the people of Cuba will have every opportunity to fulfill their own dreams in their own country. That is my hope.
On Facebook, by the way, this is the conversation that everybody's having, talking about Cuba. So,
Look, I understand that not everybody in Florida or in the United States will agree with me. But I think we have got to end the embargo. I believe that we should move toward full and normalized political relations with Cuba. I think at the end of the day, it will be a good thing for the Cuban people. It will enable them, I think, when they see people coming into their country from the United States, move in a more democratic direction, which is what I want to see.
That's
So
I'm sorry. Let's continue with another question, Senator, if you don't mind.
Sure.
In 1985, you praised the Sandinista government and you said that Daniel Ortega was an impressive guy. This is what you said about Fidel Castro. Let's listen.
You may recall way back in, 1961, they invaded Cuba. And everybody was totally convinced that Castro was the worst guy in the world. Cuban people were going to rise up in rebellion against Fidel Castro. They forgot that he educated the kids, gave them health care, totally transformed the society.
In South Florida, there are still open wounds among some exiles regarding socialism and communism. So please explain what is the difference between the socialism that you profess and the socialism in Nicaragua, Cuba, and Venezuela?
Let me just answer that.
Nicaragua.
What that was about was saying that the United States was wrong to try to invade Cuba, that the United States was wrong trying to support people to overthrow the Nicaraguan government, that the United States was wrong trying to overthrow in 1954 the government, democratically elected government of Guatemala. Throughout the history of our relationship with Latin America, we've operated under the so-called Monroe Doctrine. And that said that the United States had the right to do anything that they wanted to do in Latin America. So I actually went to Nicaragua, and I very strongly opposed the Reagan administration's effort to overthrow that government. And I strongly opposed earlier Henry Kissinger and to overthrow the government of Salvador Allende in Chile. I think the United States should be working with governments around the world, not get involved in regime change. And all of these actions, by the way, in Latin America, brought forth a lot of very strong anti-American sentiments. That's what that was about.
Senator, in retrospect, have you ever regretted the characterizations that you made of Daniel Ortega and Fidel Castro that way?
I'm sorry, please say
In
that.
retrospect, have you ever regretted the characterizations of Daniel Ortega and Fidel Castro that you made in 1985?
The key issue here was whether the United States should go around overthrowing small Latin American countries.
You didn't
I
answer
think
the
that
question.
was a mistake, both in Nicaragua and Cuba. Look, let's look at the facts here. Cuba is, of course, an authoritarian, undemocratic country, and I hope very much as soon as possible it becomes a democratic country. But on the other hand, it would be wrong not to state that in Cuba they have made some good advances in healthcare. They are sending doctors all over the world.
That's true.
They have made some progress in education. I think by restoring diplomatic relations with Cuba, it will result in significant improvements for the lives of Cubans, and it will help the United States and our business community.
Awesome answer. If he's honest, he's being honest. That's what it is. All honest answers are going to be good.
He knows more than $70 million he cannot pay, and we have a question from Facebook. Lilan Rivera is asking you the following. I'd like to know if during the first 100 days of your presidency, you will help Puerto Rico restructure its public debt and help its economy. The first 100 days, Secretary.
Absolutely, although I hope it happens before I am president, if I'm so fortunate enough to be. I have been calling for months that the Congress must give authority to Puerto Rico to restructure its debts, just like it has enabled states and cities to restructure their debt. And it is a grave injustice for the Congress led by the Republicans to be refusing to enact that opportunity within the bankruptcy law. And what we see in Puerto Rico now is a lot of suffering. We see, schools being closed. We see healthcare being denied. And we see 1,000 Puerto Rican families a month moving to the United States, mostly to Florida. Puerto Ricans are citizens of America. They deserve to be treated as citizens and to be given the opportunity to get back on their feet economically. And I just want to add one thing to the question you were asking, Senator Sanders. I think in that same interview, he praised what he called the revolution of values in Cuba, and talked about how people were working for the common good, not for themselves. I just couldn't disagree more. If the values are that you oppress people, you disappear people, you imprison people, even kill people for expressing their opinions, for expressing freedom of speech, that is not the kind of revolution of values that I ever want to see anywhere.
Yeah, she had a revolution in there too.
Well, as I said earlier, I don't believe it is the business of the United States government to be overthrowing small countries around the world. And number two, when you get to Puerto Rico, there's an issue that we have not talked about. That little island is $73 billion in debt. And the government now is paying interest rates of up to 11%. And many of the bonds that they are paying off were purchased by vulture capitalists for 30 cents on the dollar. And what I have said in talking to the leaders of Puerto Rico, we've got to bring people together, and it's not the people of Puerto Rico or the children or the schools, but maybe some of these vulture capitalists who are going to have to lose a little bit of money in this process.
We need to move on to another topic. Secretary Clinton, there is a vacancy on the Supreme Court at a very crucial moment. Among other things, the court is considering the most significant abortion restrictions in a generation. I would like to share with you a question that we got from Facebook from Joshua Dansby, a law student in Washington, D.C., who wants to know what specific forms of qualifications you would look for in a Supreme Court justice.
Well, I think this is one of the most important issues facing our country right now. And I fully support President Obama's intention under the Constitution to nominate a successor to Justice Scalia. And I believe no state probably understands this better than Florida, because let's remember three words: Bush versus Gore. A court took away a presidency. Now we've got the Republican Congress trying to take away the Constitution, and we should not tolerate that. And so from my perspective, it is imperative that we put enormous pressure on the Republicans in the Senate to do their constitutional duty. Now, obviously, you look for people who are not only qualified on paper, but have a heart, have life experience, understand what these decisions mean in the lives of Americans, and understand the balance of power that their decisions can disrupt one way or the other. So clearly, I would look for people who believe that Roe v. Wade is settled law and that Citizens United needs to be overturned as quickly as possible.
Well, time to go to commercial. We're going to commercial. We'll be right back. Vamos a una pausa comercial y regresamos con las conclusiones de este debate.
Okay. The weakness point, of course, this is Sanders' admiration of Fidel Castro and Daniel Ortega. Definitely.
I don't know if I would call it an admiration.
He was just saying that he pretty much gave the people a better education.
Yeah, of course. It was back to those times, but the Latino audience, especially Cubans, they very intolerant to this. You can ask Pedro, he was on air here, that he even hears some like a close connotation of socialism. He like literally becomes very irritated. So yes, it's very, very sensitive for Bernie.
I think that whole question was probably his hardest question. And I think it was his weakest answer for it too. I think he had a weak answer for that.
He wasn't ready, of course. But
what do you think, Alex?
I agree. Yeah, I don't know enough about his views on Cuban government or anything to really speak much to it, but he could have done better there. But that's going to happen, man. I mean, he can't bat 1,000.
Yeah, that's true too. Hopefully the media, do you think the media's going to pick up on that though?
What he's saying, no, oh God, no, he'll get slammed. I'm checking CNN right now to see if they've already said, call him a communist or a Castro sympathizer or something, they will tomorrow, I'm sure.
It's like he lose like a little.
Very, yes, definitely.
And Wes, what are you thinking so far with Bernie's, well, how would you call it? Not approval, but description of Cuba's situation. How do you think about that? Like, what do you think about that situation? Do you think that he basically endorsed socialism, or do you think that it's just a misuse of words?
I only got 3 words for Bernie. He's a Marxist, period.
Oh, God.
Alex, you want to handle that?
No.
Okay. It's just like, it's not even worth it. It's just like, whatever.
No, he's not a Marxist. It's
I don't know where to go. I don't know where to
close. It's not close to any method to the Marxism, but he just, he stands
yeah,
for
Quill, I mean, you're Russian. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, because I endure all these things. I know. Mm-hmm. So that, of course, Cuban regime as the Soviet regime, it's the terrible things. And but I agree with Bernie that he just didn't emphasizes in time because he didn't prepare. He wasn't prepared. Okay, but anyway, the medical system, the healthcare, yes, is very good. It was best that healthcare system that I even had. I saw. I entered it in my childhood at least. So
okay,
but regarding censorship, regarding all things that people really enter it in the prisons just for free speech, yes, it's so it should be separated. It should be very much clarified, all these things.
The last word to the end of this wonderful debate, and it's time for your closing remarks. Secretary Clinton, you're first.
Well, thank you very much for a lively debate, and I appreciate greatly all the questions, especially the questions in person here and those coming at us on Facebook. It just reinforces my strong commitment to do everything I can to break down all the barriers that stand in the way of people living up to their own potential and of our country doing the same. So I am going to take on those economic barriers. I have a plan to create jobs and raise incomes. I'm going to take on the education barriers that often leave too many children behind even after they have completed schooling. I'm going to take on the healthcare barriers. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that we unite our country. I will find common ground, just as I have as First Lady, as Senator, and Secretary of State. I will also stand my ground wherever matters of principles are at stake. I would be honored to have your support in the upcoming primaries on Tuesday and hope to have the great honor of serving you as your president.
This has been a wonderful debate, but time being limited, some of the most important issues facing our country have not been asked. And that is it acceptable that in America, the top 0.1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%? Is it acceptable that while the average American works longer hours for lower wages, 58% of all new income is going to the top 1%? Is it acceptable that Wall Street and billionaires are spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to buy elections? Is that democracy or is that oligarchy? Which is why I believe we've got to overturn Citizens United and move to public funding of elections. Is it right that in the greatest, wealthiest country in the history of the world, so many of our young people can't even afford to go to college or leave school deeply in debt? In the wealthiest country in the history of the world, if we stand up, fight back, we can do a lot better. That's why I'm running for president.
See, Hillary didn't get no standing ovations at all.
Feel the burn.
Oh, look at him, man. He can't help but smile.
He didn't expect to get so much love from Miami because people, they really thought that it was Hillary. And I've been telling people, like, Miami loves Bernie.
He looks so defeated, man.
For being here, for joining us.
I'm glad. She needs to get that reality check.
The wonderful crowd that was here today. Our audience has been wonderful, and thank you.
The blue eyes and brown hairs are going to help her down here.
Yes, on behalf of the Washington Post and Univision and Facebook, we'd like to thank you again for joining us in this debate and also to remind people to get out and vote.
Yes,
we want to use these last moments. It's very important to go out and vote. Next Tuesday, March 15th, there's elections in Florida, Illinois, Missouri, North Carolina, Ohio, all these states, in all these states, the Hispanic vote is crucial. We have heard us talk about the importance of Hispanic vote, how in very close races, it is the Hispanic vote that can choose the next president of the United States. This is Hispanic crowd, the Latin wave. So the only way that this can happen is if we all go out and vote. So you know it perfectly. Who does not vote doesn't count.
Did nobody say vote for Bernie?
Convicts of the White House without his vote. Remember, don't let others decide for you. The power is in your hands. You have to participate. You have to vote. Thank you for being with us this evening, and thank you for trusting in Univision.
Good job. Good job, Univision.
Yeah, they were screaming in the audience. And good evening again from Miami-Dade College, where Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders have. Wow.
That was an awesome debate. I think Univision did an awesome job. So thank you guys for asking the questions that we wanted to hear. So we definitely got somewhat of answers from both of the candidates. But as we close off, you guys tell me, what is your favorite part of the debate? What was your favorite part?
I'll go last this time.
Okay. So, Kuro, do you want to start?
What do you mean? The favorite part of the debate?
Like what? Yeah.
The whole thing? I don't know.
Basically. What was your...
Not like eliminate something.
Okay, I'll start then. Okay, so my favorite thing that happened during the debates were the questions that were actually asked, especially the one about immigration. I thought that was one of the biggest ones that I wanted to hear. There wasn't a lot of ISIS talk, but in regards to how Bernie would handle immigration, I fully support for him. I feel Hillary still doesn't have it in the bag yet as to what she wants to do with immigration. It's more or less she hopped on Bernie's train, and it's a hybrid of Bernie's thing and then a hybrid of her old regime. So it'd just be interesting to see in the coming days how this debate helped or hurt her in the polls. So
that's important for her campaign is to kind of jump on the bandwagon of a lot of Bernie's rhetoric, if you will, so that she can try and pull some voters away from him. So
I'm glad that you called her out on that.
Pay attention to how she will mimic a lot of what it is that he says that you haven't ever really heard her say before. She's never had a thing to say about education reform until Bernie started with his agenda with it.
Yes. She just copy and pastes. Yes.
Yep. Copy and paste. Yep.
And you know what? We're seeing it. We see right through it. Twitter sees right through it. Facebook sees right through it. So, I mean, America's slowly but surely waking up to what's really going on and what's really being played in front of them. Okay. And Wes, what did you think about tonight's debate? What were your highlights?
It's all the same to me. Like, I'm still confused as hell. They both convolute their answers and rarely answer questions.
Was there a question in particular that had you confused the most?
Man, by the time they got through answering whatever it was, they go through their full rebuttal spiel. I was confused. They were completely off topic.
Okay. So do you have any predictions for Tuesday's outcome? Who do you think is going to rise just by the attitudes and the tones that you've heard during the debate? Who do you think rose and failed at this?
What's that in Florida?
Yeah.
It's probably going to be Hillary.
You think it's going to be Hillary?
Yeah.
My guess right now, because I didn't give you guys a guess, I would think actually Bernie. I'm hearing a lot of Bernie talk around. Everybody's loving Bernie down here.
Make sure to get out and vote.
I will make sure of that. I will myself be voting also too. It would be my first election I'll be voting into, so I'm really excited, and it's going to be a huge awakening, I think, regardless of whether or not Bernie becomes a candidate or not. I mean, there's going to be some sort of awakeness that's going to happen for sure. And who else is here? I saw Brian trying to get in a couple times. I don't know what happened with him, but yeah, he wanted to come in because one thing that Bernie touched on was thermal technology, and that's a huge thing with him. So we might get Brian on the Bernie train right now. So hopefully next time he joins us. But Alex, go ahead and give us your highlights. What were your favorite parts?
I love the closing statement by him. I thought that was really strong, and it's not often that you see him elevate his voice like that. The best part was his the smile that he couldn't help at the end.
I like that. I like that too.
It really was. It was saying, holy shit, we might take Florida as well.
Because even Hillary was surprised. A lot of the time, she would set up like these little sentences that she was just expecting like a huge response, and nobody was really like saying anything.
Nope. She has a history of she does really well with feeding off the crowd. Where she'll start to get a cheer, and then her voice will go like this. And we didn't get to hear that at all tonight because she had no momentum from the crowd.
Exactly.
I said earlier, she was just constantly on her back foot. She could not keep up with him. The audience was clearly against her, and I would say that for the first time in her political career, I'm sure, the moderators were very much, well, not very much, but kind of obviously against her as well, with just those early, right out of the gate, with those attacks against her, which were fucking beautiful.
And I think Univision had to do that. They had to do that because this is a huge opportunity for them. This is a huge political race, and having these two very popular candidates on their station, you're not going to ask them these stupid questions that CNN
No, you can't
seems to.
Yeah, you got to make an impression, that's for sure.
So I think they definitely did that really well. Oh, we have an incoming call. Let's see who's calling in. And it's from California. Hi, you're talking to Kevin on DINtv. Who's speaking?
It's Brian, Kevin.
Brian, what's up, man? What happened to you?
That computer. I don't have the latest updated form of a computer.
It's fine. I was just talking about you because Bernie mentioned investing in thermal technologies.
Hey, I'm out of here, guys. Have a great night. Thanks for viewing my feed.
No problem, Alex. Thank you for joining us. You have a good night too, okay?
No, appreciate what you do. See you guys.
Right. Bye-bye. Hope to see you tomorrow. I'm sorry, Brian. Go ahead.
No, if he's calling for thermonuclear power, he has to have a space program.
Come on, Brian. At least he's mentioning it. Nobody else is.
Well, that's what somebody should. I think.
I've never heard talk about technologies that pretty much are not really in the public's perspective.
So Brian, he mentioned his carbon tax.
Yeah,
he mentioned his carbon tax.
Like I said about fusion energy, you cannot let any other country to supply its own country with helium-3, which is located on the moon. If Bernie Sanders is serious about thermonuclear technology, then he has to emphasize to everyone what that means. It does mean going to the moon.
You want him to. You want him to really like jump on the gun right away. People don't even know what the hell some of the things that you're talking about. I think he's slowly easing it in. He mentioned thermal technology. Like, what other candidate have you heard even mention that? He's trying to put these things in people's minds. So, somebody who's never heard that, they might research it and start looking into that type of stuff that you do.
Well, I think I actually think if he was absolutely on the thermonuclear power technology aspect, he should actually emphasize the key role that China's playing, and I guarantee you he could take the presidency if he actually mentions that we could have a real space program with thermonuclear fusion on the horizon, which, by the way, can phase out the large uses of CO2 emissions. If he can connect that, then obviously he has everything going, but until he does, I don't believe he knows the future of mankind in thermonuclear power. What really
It sounds to me, it's just like fuck everybody else's like stances. Like, as long as he's not talking about this, then I'm not gonna vote for him. Like, that's the only issue that he needs to worry about. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think he just needs to break out of his own philosophy of keeping it simple for the American people. He really, it just seems for me